All righty. Good morning, guys. Sorry for the little bit of delay. We were getting into some stories offline that were particularly interesting that we're going to be hearing about today. Today, we are to close out a great month of interviews. We have managed to get in touch with a prior, I believe, 2 weeks ago, our first Ranger guest, Mr. Chuck Donahue. And he mentioned our guest today, Mr. Charlie Ochoa, who is his team leader. And we're going to get a lot of great Ranger info. If y'all have got questions, go ahead and start getting them ready because we're going to hit a good Q&A at the end after some stories and a little show and tell. But I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Charlie and let him kind of introduce himself to you guys, and we're going to hop right into it. So, Mr. Charlie, thanks for joining us this morning, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bud. It's an honor for me to be here, an honor to meet you, and thank you so much for taking an interest in the operations that our Rangers had in Vietnam. So, as Bud mentioned, I go by Charlie. That's what my friends and family referred to me as, Charlie. So, feel free to call me Charlie. And I'm here for everyone like Bud or anyone that's out there that's viewing this or will view it later. So any questions that you have, there's no thing as a dumb question. You know, we all have different backgrounds and experiences, and I'll do my very best to answer any question that you may have. First of all, just a little bit of background on myself quickly is I live and I was born and raised in San Antonio. And one of the things that I felt I compelled to do is join the military. My grandmother had 5 sons. And as I was growing up as a kid in the little hallway that she had in her home, there were the 5 pictures of her sons in uniform. And I could tell, even as a 6-year-old kid, the pride that she took every time that she would mention her sons and point to their picture. So anyway, that was a big impression on me. I have one older brother, and he decided right after high school and some college that he would join the Airborne. So off he goes and joins the Airborne. He was 7 years older and someone that I looked up to as a role model. So that prompted me and got me kind of on a path to join the military. But I said to myself, when I want to spend 3 years, I'll volunteer 3 years. I'll when I get out, I want to go to college on the GI Bill. I do not like handouts. I don't like to take something for nothing. So it was my mindset from the very beginning to give the Army 100% of my energy. And so that's exactly what I did. I volunteered for everything. You know, the old adage in the Army is never volunteer, or in the military, never volunteer. Well, I was the opposite. I'm just kind of an outlier. So, yes, June 6, 1968, 1 week after graduation from high school, I went in the Army for a 36-month stint. And what happened is, of course, I went through my basic training, which was in El Paso, Texas, in June and July, and it was hotter than hell there. And then I went to advanced infantry training at Fort Gordon, Georgia. And right after that, I went to Airborne School, became a paratrooper. And after that, I was assigned to Panama to Alpha Company, the 193rd Infantry Brigade, which was the only airborne company in Panama. Special Forces had their own camp. Of course, they're airborne too, but we were pretty much right outside of Panama City. During the riots that they had there prior to me arriving, Alpha Company, my unit, was responsible for that international bridge that spans the isthmus. So we had M60s, M60 machine guns set up at each end. So I was there in Panama about 7 months. I decided, nope, I want to go to where the action is. One of my fellow, I guess, friend from Alpha Company joined the LERPs with the 173rd, and he'd send pictures back, photographs. That kind of inspired me. So I put in my paperwork, and within 30 days, I was gone. I was gone to Vietnam. I called my dad. I said, "Hey, Dad, by the way, I'm coming home for 30 days." He says, "Are you on your way to Vietnam?" I said, "Yes, I am." I said, "Please don't tell Mom. I'll tell her when I get there." He says, "Okay, that's fine. I'll be praying for you." So after 30 days in San Antonio, I shipped off to Vietnam. I arrived in Cam Bay and was taken to the 1st Cavalry Division headquarters, where all the incoming personnel for the 1st Cav arrive. So anyway, during that time, I met one of my former cadre, who was actually my squad leader from advanced infantry training at Fort Gordon. And I said, "Hey, how do I get into the LURPS?" He had been wounded, so he was cadre there at the headquarters of the 1st Cavalry Division. He says, "Well, you have to go to the personnel office and give them your name and your serial number and all that, and they can cut orders." I said, "Okay, that's what I want to do." So I ended up spending a couple of weeks waiting for my training at Hotel Company Rangers, 75th Infantry, which we were part of the 1st Cav Division. So you may know that the major units in Vietnam each had a LRP company, Long Range Reconnaissance Patrol Company, and they had designations. Lima, for example, Lima Company, L Company was for the 101st. Hotel Company was the 1st Cav Division. So there were approximately, I want to say about somewhere between 13 and 15 of these companies. They were all throughout South Vietnam. And so what happened, the reason they were formed is General Westmoreland felt that the units needed better intelligence, firsthand sightings of enemy movements, troop movements, and that sort of thing. So I went through the 3 weeks training there, and it was in Phuc Vinh, about 20 miles, so I'd say 20 miles east northeast of Saigon, or Bien Hoa, where the 1st Cav was actually headquartered. And then I was assigned to a team led by Sergeant Dan Roberts. So I spent 12 months in the field. I had 34 missions. Our missions were 5 days, 4 nights, but one or so missions that I recall was not even 20 to 30 minutes, because we landed in a hot LZ and we had to be extracted. And so we had to leave as quickly as we could. It's just too hot. But basically, our job entailed is being inserted by helicopter normally, and we did have some stay behinds where we might link up with a infantry company. The infantry company would walk off and we would stay behind, call it stay behind. But mostly, all my insertions were by helicopter. And the team leader and assistant team leader would go on overflights of the area of operation, or the AO, and it consisted of 4 grid squares. Each grid square was 1,000 meters. So you can kind of get a feel for what our area of operation was like, and it was always in a free fire zone. That means there's no friendlies there. Anything that we would see, you had to assume they were an enemy. All the sightings I was a part of for my first 12 months there in country, people were carrying weapons. So I didn't have to worry about who's friendly, who's not. Assume that they're not friendly. And then, so as my time came up with the 12-month tour, I decided I would go ahead and extend for 6 months to get a 90-day early out. Otherwise, I'd come back to the States, be assigned to a post, and for 6 months I'd have to be doing just spit and polish and all that. And I just thought, that's pretty boring. After being in the combat zone for a year and then coming back and and just kind of pretending that you're getting ready to go to war, that's not a good thing for me. So I did extend, and I stayed 6 more months. During this time, my current wife, Beverly, which we have 52 years of marriage, we met in high school. We were writing to each other, and we were he-ing and she-ing, and things got more serious. So I got out of the service March 1971, and Beverly and I were married June 18th, 1972. I think I have that date right, because if I didn't, Beverly would kill me. Anyway, so reflecting back on my time as a Ranger, I got to meet a lot of dedicated individuals. They were very just professional and wanted to do the best job possible. And it was really inspiring for me to lead some of these men in battle. I was 21 years old as a team leader, and that's a heck of a lot of responsibility to be responsible for a team, for the preparation of the mission to the overflight, what you're going to do, which way you're going to go on the ground, plan that out and try to execute it. And of course, I was told from the day one, here's your 3 priorities, and don't forget them: mission, men, self. So I kept those in mind. To this day, they're embedded in my brain. So with that brief introduction, I'll go ahead and turn the program over to Bud and see if anyone has questions, or is there anything I can answer?
Absolutely. And that want to say congratulations on your recent recent milestone of 52 years with your lovely wife. That's amazing. High school sweethearts making it like that through Vietnam, and you coming back home and immediately popping the question. That's a beautiful story. Beautiful story.
Thank you, Bud. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we guys, y'all go ahead and start getting questions in. I'll take over the lead question asking role until y'all start getting some in. And guys, we're going to be covering an aspect that I only recently came upon through Mr. Charlie, a group called the Apache Blues, which there's actually a movie on that we'll kind of discuss here in a little bit. But I was curious about your stint in Panama. Actually, let's step back, because people will be mad if I don't ask about you joining the military. Did you know when you were getting in? You mentioned you of course wanted to be in a combat unit, but did you, after getting in and of course getting into Panama and all that, did you knew you wanted to be something a bit more than just in the infantry? Did you consider ever either trying to alter your Vietnam deployment to where maybe you could have thought about special forces, or were you gonna get to country and find your way into a LRP unit like you ended up doing?
Special forces did enter my mind when I was in basic training. And they said, anyone that's interested in the special forces, you can take the exam. And so I took the exam. I'm a little bit embarrassed to tell you I didn't score quite as high as they wanted, but there were some interesting questions on that exam. If you're out in the jungle and you've got 2 or 3 other people with you, and one knows the terrain but doesn't speak the language, one speaks the language but doesn't know the terrain, and it's a multiple choice question. But just to succinctly answer your question, Bud, yes, it did cross my mind. Another, it's just one more thing to volunteer for, and that's me. But it didn't work out. And sometimes, they say if you want to make God smile, tell him your plan. And so I guess he smiled at me when I wanted to go to Special Forces. But I got to tell you, the Rangers, I have no regrets about joining the Rangers. I got to meet and work with some of the best professionals you could ever imagine. Chuck Donahue, Craig Jorgensen, Ed Beal. Craig Jorgensen and Ed Beal are in the Apache Blues documentary. So, again, those guys, top notch. They were top notch then. I consider them close friends, and I have the utmost respect for them.
As they do for you, because recently I've been trying to get in touch with more Rangers. Mr. Gary Linder has helped out a lot, and Mr. Chuck has helped out a lot. And Mr. Craig Jorgensen recently has gotten in touch with me. And as a matter of fact, like I said offline, he's sending me 2 books that and guys, if you don't know about Mr. Craig, he's been on the Team House. He's got a ton of great books out there. I recommend y'all looking him up. I'm trying to get him to come on, but he, anytime I'm talking about Rangers or speaking about anyone associated with the Alerts or the Rangers, your name is at the top of the list that he brings up. He speaks highly of you. As a matter of fact, last week when I was asking him if he'd be interested, he's like, you need to interview the men like Mr. Ochoa first. I pale in comparison to him, were pretty much his exact words. So they think highly of you as well.
Well, thank you, Bud.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And one of the viewers just said, and I agree, Special Forces lost for sure. Yeah, I agree. They lost a good one right there. With you in Panama, we've kind of spoken to a few of the SOG guys who actually stayed in and ended up in Panama, El Salvador, and the like. What exactly were you guys doing in Panama? Were y'all engaging in active combat? Were y'all training locals or?
Well, okay. So as I mentioned, I was assigned to Alpha Company. It was a regular airborne infantry company. So we did train a lot as a company. We went out to the field. We made our practice jumps right there on the beach at Fort Kobe. But mainly, we were there as just to kind of protect our interest of the Panama Canal. We really did not, participate in any jungle warfare or train any of the Panamanians or anything like that. We were kind of a self-contained unit and ready to, at just a drop of a hat to go wherever we needed to go. And so it was a lot of, spit and polish in that unit, and starched fatigues and this and that. It was a very well disciplined unit. But I will say this, lucky for me and everyone else in that unit, we had some of the people from the San Blas Islands that would come and work, and they'd spit shine your boots every day. And so that was the neat thing.
That's I mean, speaking of spit and polish, and I've got a picture of, I think maybe of you over there, but did you actually earn the distinction of Soldier of the Year of Southern Command while you were there?
Well, I'm surprised that you bring that up. I don't know where you picked that up, but yes. Okay. So when I arrived in Panama, I was a private first class. Okay, so that was a E3. And what happened is a couple of months later, I was promoted to specialist fourth class, and I became a machine gunner, M60 machine gunner in our platoon. So then they had Soldier of the Month, and they said, Ochoa, you're going to represent our brigade in Soldier of the Month. And so I said, great. I don't know what that means, but I'll do it. And they said, well, you're going to go in front of a board, and it's about 5 first sergeants, and they're going to ask you questions of current events, and they're going to ask you questions about your job, your military occupational specialty, or MOS. I said, great. So they gave me some time off to study for that, and I did. I would go down to the library and read up on current events. And back then there was a lunar orbit taking place and this and that. So anyway, what happens is you're competing with other individuals in the brigade. It was about maybe 4 or 5, and your name is called, and you go through a door, and sitting there were about 5 first sergeants, and they're like, shoulder to shoulder, sitting at a table facing you, and there's a chair in front. So you go up to them and you say, specialist 4th class reporting, and you salute, and they ask you to have a seat, and you sit down, and you sit, but you still maintain your military bearing, and that is, you put your hands in front of you on your thighs. Okay, no slouching, none of that. You're like at West Point. you're stiff right there. And so they start asking you all sorts of questions about things. Current events was a big one. Some having to do with being a machine gunner, and they ask you a little bit of your background and things like that. But then it went on to the next phase, and I think the next phase was like battalion, and finally it was for the whole command. At that time, it was United States Army Southern Command. That was all that region down there. And I remember that they had a special forces person that I was competing against, and this and that. But that was going to be taking place across Panama. So I had to go on a train from where I was all the way across Panama for this particular competition. And one of my squad leaders and platoon sergeant went with me, carrying my carrying my uniform and my jump boots and everything, and helped me get dressed so that everything was just perfect. But that's really a high point, because when I was selected USARSO Soldier of the Month, and I believe that was May 1969, it was the things just took a turn. They just took a turn, a real positive turn for my career. And so coming back, I came back for whatever reason by myself. One of the first sergeants says, the command sergeant major from our command said, I want you to take my staff car. I'm gonna be staying here a little bit longer. So I rode across the isthmus in the back seat of this green Ford Fairlane staff car. I had a chauffeur and everything, and I go through the gate, and they saluted me and all that. I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? I thought that was fun. I'm just a
Spec 4.
Yeah, I'm just a Spec 4. So then they said, we're going to put you in front of the E5 board. And, again, you're going to answer questions on all the subjects of the infantry, map reading, medical, and how to call in artillery and this and that. Okay, so it's at a ball field, and there's a bunch of stations, and there were about 35 of us. But before that, you go through this, they have a meeting to make sure that everyone is accounted for that's going to be in this, so they called everybody's name, but they didn't call my name. And I said, excuse me, I said, I'm Specialist Ochoa. My name wasn't called. Oh, yeah, yeah. We know about you. Okay. All right. So I didn't know it at the time, but this was one of those things that, hey, this guy, we're just going to float him through and he's going to pass. Okay. So some of the stations, and there were probably seven, maybe seven stations, you go up and you report, you salute and all that, and you give them your name, and then they might ask you some questions. Others would say, go ahead, just go on forward. You're fine. No questions were asked.
Wow.
So yeah, I did make E5 to make it to shorten this topic. But along with that, I got to go with General Johnson to two countries over about a 6-day period. We went in his staff plane. It was a tricked out C-47, real lush inside, and in that plane was his what do you call it? His like his assistant. It was a captain assigned to him, an aide, general's aide.
Adjutant, or yeah, general's
Yeah,
aide.
it was a general's aide, and he's back there as we're flying, and he says, "Have you ever thought of West Point?" I said, "Well, you know, my grades were not super good, so I might have a little struggle. Well, we can send you to Fort Belvoir, Virginia for 9 months, and they will get you up to speed." I said, "Well, guess what? I've got my paperwork in for Vietnam, and I feel compelled. I need to serve in Vietnam." Okay, that's fine. I respect that. But if you wanted to go to West Point, General Johnson would sponsor you.
Holy crap.
So I'm thinking, okay, here I am. You know, at that time I was probably, I was barely, yeah, I was just 18 years old, pretty, you know, happy guy. Maybe not the best judgment, but it's good for me. So anyway, that's the story of the United States Army Southern Command Soldier of the Month. They gave me a savings bond, $100 savings bond. They wrote my parents a really nice letter and this and that,
Wow.
which I think that was a highlight for me. Make my parents proud.
Absolutely.
But it all worked out. And
That's too cool, man. I mean, especially all of the process doing the test and the ones after that, and then you get to go 6 days with a general. I mean, that
that's
is
right.
insane. I
And
mean,
but I got to tell you, when I returned back to the company, my stature within the company, I got to tell you, was like celebrity status.
I can
I mean,
imagine.
just the way people reacted to me. There was one guy that had been, he went up to the last part, and everybody would say, you know, he went to the finals of the USARSO Soldier of the Month. So man, everybody was like in awe of this guy, right? Well, then I'm the first one to be selected, and things just like were, I mean, so different. It was so, from my first sergeant to my platoon leader. I mean, it just, I don't know. It was a strange feeling that I'm not used to.
I mean, I can imagine so. I mean, all of that from you being before you got your E5, being a Spec 4, getting saluted and driven around. I mean, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. It was unreal. It really was.
Wow, that's so cool. And I think I've got a picture. I hope this is Panama. You
Yes, it
with your
is. And
that
that little patch up there on right there, that little patch is a mountain gator. We were the mountain gators. It's like a small crocodile was our mascot. And that's a little mountain gator coming down in a parachute.
that
So
is
yeah, we were the mountain gators for Alpha Company.
God, that is too
Yeah.
cool. There you are, hip firing the 60. That
Yeah.
is
That's been quite a few years ago.
I mean, I mean, gosh, you were young, but I mean, geez, you look, I mean, you were a kid and you look like a kid right there.
Well,
Gosh
and
almighty.
looking at that picture, it's hard to believe that that was probably, I'm going to say 55 years ago or so. I wish I had that waistline.
Don't we all? What do you think? How big were you in your Vietnam days?
I was about 140, soaking wet, 140. In fact, so my brother that I told you about went airborne before I did because he was 7 years older and all that. He says, Charlie, he says, you know what? When you go airborne, they're going to have to tie a brick to your ass so that parachute comes down.
I've heard of some guys, some small guys that actually were that was going to be their only trouble getting through and getting into special forces was being so light and
Yeah.
making sure the chute would snatch. That's wow.
Well, I can tell you this, bud. In our company in Vietnam, Hotel Company Rangers, the individuals that served in that unit came packaged in all shapes and sizes. We had the guy that looks like a muscular Greek god down to the little guy like me that was nothing but gristle and bone. But man, I could repel with the best of them because of my strength to weight ratio.
Mm.
I, I played sports all my life from little league baseball through high school baseball. And so, you develop, and I did lift weights and things like that in middle school and high school. So strength to weight ratio was really important.
And I mean, it's not like today. I mean, you guys, and I don't know when this photo is. You've got a lot of metal, so it might be after Vietnam. But I mean, you guys, there's no way you guys could have been like the guys today on, on TRT and with Viking beards and looking like they're professional bodybuilders because you can't be that big in the jungle doing what y'all are doing. It would just eat you up.
Well, I'll tell you what, if there's any weight to be lost, the jungle is an excellent sauna that will melt the fat off. If not, the leeches will eat you up anyway. And just joking, of course, but yeah. Plus the diet, the
Oh
diet.
God, yeah.
Yeah,
The
it's not.
calories, not
Yeah.
even be able to keep up with calories to stay
Well,
running.
you move through the jungle for let's just say 5 hours in one day, for example. The rest of the time you might be monitoring a trail, but still with a 70-pound rucksack. And of course, that first day, you've got all this water and everything. As every day goes by, it becomes lighter, but still, that's a lot of weight. And let's face it, it it'll make you lose weight. Yeah, that's me. That's me in full combat gear, getting ready to be inserted. And I'm fairly new in that picture. I'm actually speaking with my team leader, Dan Roberts.
I've got that photo that I was going to bring that up to hear about a little bit about Mr. Dan, but and we've got several questions already dealing with uniforms and such. Let me get to those, but I did have one question to kind of set the mood for what Vietnam was going to be like. I think I read somewhere that, leading into that, I believe you were the honor graduate for jump school, and you ended up getting to go to a special school. Did you end up getting to go to a jungle warfare school or a jungle survival school?
Well, down in Panama, they did have the jungle expert school,
Oh,
and for those individuals that would go through that school, there was a special patch that you would wear on your left side of your shirt. And it's funny, I did not get to go through that school, but our whole company went through that school shortly after I left. So everyone was able to earn that patch. I kind of regret that, I could have been a jungle expert going through that school and didn't, just another voluntary school. But no, didn't get to do that.
dang. That's neat. I recently started seeing those and some photos of some of the LERP guys and 101st guys and didn't even know that was a real badge and started looking into it and found out
Yes.
it was some of the guys or higher ups didn't want guys wearing stuff like that, and they actually stopped them for a while. And I think now they've reinstituted the
Good.
badge, the jungle expert badge.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to
I
hear it's an earned, you know, you earn something, you should be able to display it like any other medal or anything that's part of your uniform.
Absolutely. And we'll get to here in a few minutes another very well known and exclusive patch group that you're going to be wearing. But what I was leading into before we get into some of the viewer questions, you had a pretty jarring, I think, first week in Vietnam that was there not some kind of barracks accident or something to where you guys lost a few guys right from the get-go?
Yes, yes. I got there August 6th, 1969, and the previous month there was accident in the barracks where two of our rangers died, and from what I hear, a trip flare was detonated. So you come in from the field back the prior month that I was there, because they changed everything because of the accident. So you had hooks or nails up on the wall on the 2x4s by your bed, and you just hang your web gear up there.
Mhm.
So you might have grenades, you might have trip flares, you might have those parachute flares, your your ammo for your M16, all of that stuff, smokes, smoke grenades to call in to for them to locate you from the helicopters to locate you and all that. So what happened once that trip flare was activated, it caused the explosion of different things, munitions. I don't
Mhm.
know if it was grenades. We all carried at least two claymore mines, that sort of thing. And so I get there, and they said, Ochoa, next week we're going to have a memorial service, and you need to be there at the main chapel. I go, oh, okay. Not knowing what's going on. I didn't know anyone. For 2 weeks, I'm assigned to the mail guy. I'm carrying ice for the guys. I'm, loading up with cans of Coke and stuff, just doing odd jobs. And I go down to the chapel, and the service for these two individuals starts, and they read off one of the names, and from the front, somebody at the front reads off a name such and such. Another ranger that's sitting about 15 feet away stands up and says, he died on the field of battle. And then they do this for the second person, and I'm sitting around thinking, okay, what did I get myself into? Right away, first thing I attend is a memorial service, and it kind of wakes you up to thinking they're playing for keeps around here.
Mhm.
So it was a sobering experience for me.
Yeah, like you said, that this is the real deal now. Uh,
Yes,
Jeez
yes.
Louise. Um, all righty, let me get to some of the viewer questions that have come in. They're gonna jump around a bit, but pretty
That's
good
fine.
stuff here.
That's fine.
Mike Ken's curious, what would be the main mission difference between SOG, Rangers, and LERPs in Charlie's opinion? Uh,
Okay. Okay.
you may-
Well, I can tell you this. Rangers and LERPs are the same thing. Um, our unit designation was actually our unit was a Ranger unit, and that's on the unit designation. H Company Rangers, 75th Infantry Airborne. Uh, so that's all part of that. The the SOG had they. I don't know exactly everything about the SOG operations, but they were very much clandestine in some cases, where they may go to where no other Americans were supposed to go, like Cambodia. That was off limits to us. The NVA and the VC knew it, They could cause trouble, scurry across to Cambodia. Although we did go into Cambodia in May 1970 under Nixon's direction, but that was in and out. We weren't in there for very long. So SOG to me is a very kind of clandestine type operation. The mission of the LRPs, the Rangers, was to basically find and locate the enemy. Okay, so by doing that, on the before you're inserted on your overflight, you have your map and you have your grease pencil and you note where the trails are in that area. And so once you're inserted, you make your way quietly, very quietly. You stay off the trails, no footprints on the trails at all. You don't want to make footprints. They'll come looking for you if they know you're there. So anyway, we would monitor trails, and what we would do is depending on the vegetation, we would set up a string of claymore mines. So let's say it's a 6-man team. You have a line of claymores that are off the trail, and it might be 4, 5 feet. You move backwards, and they're all daisy chained together with detonation cords. So there's a clacker that's tied into the left side, that left end, and one to the right end. And the team leader has one of those detonators. We call them clackers. There's a nomenclature for that, like everything else. And then on the left end is another clacker. And what it is, it's basically a blasting cap that is screwed into the claymore.
Okay.
And that blasting cap it's almost like the wire that you use to plug in your printer or anything else. It looks just like that. It might be about 50 feet long, but you bring it back, and so the team monitors this trail. Somebody on the team always has to monitor the back side so nobody sneaks up on you. But we might be 15 to 20 feet from those claymores. I had 2 instances when the claymores, one were detonated on purpose. The other one, we don't know what the heck happened, that were detonated. And on that particular time, we were overlooking a berm, and it was where we were the previous day. We got in a snatch position because we thought we had an opportunity to take a prisoner. But I told Bud prior to this call, he took a 90-degree turn. Lucky for him, or he would have been a POW. But anyway, so we're overlooking this road, and it was a well-packed road. It was one that we wouldn't normally run across. It was probably 7 to 8 feet wide. And I'm not sure what happened, but when the claymores detonated, the backblast threw me backwards about 7 feet or so, at least 7 feet, into my team. And my team leader looked down at me, and I was unconscious, but I could hear him talk, and he says, "Ochoa's dead." And I'm thinking, my mom is going to be really pissed. and so then I opened my eyes, and I have these 5 faces all looking down at me, which was kind of peculiar. And my team leader says, "Oh, no, he's not. He's okay. He's all right." But another thing that I remember vividly is immediately I had to go urinate. That backblast, the power of that backblast must have compressed my body in such a manner that I needed to urinate. So anyway, and also, one thing that they don't tell you at advanced infantry training when they're teaching you about claymore mines is that those legs can go backwards. You've got the claymore mine that's
So,
pointed towards the enemy, right? It says front towards enemy. Doesn't take a genius to figure that out. But the backblast caused the legs to embed in my sternum. And I had a piece of shrapnel that's over my right eyelid that you can, if you look closely, is right there. I almost lost my right eye. But that's after 55 or so years that I still have that scar. So anyway, that's the story about Rangers and LRPs. But here's the interesting thing. I think you would want to know this. It's not only did we have to have a count of how many enemy we saw, we had to report also on their armaments, AK-47s, machine guns, mortars, or anything else. We had to report on that. We'd report on that either then, more likely right then and there when we could. But get this, we had to report on haircuts. What kind of haircut do they have?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I just got a haircut, right? Okay. So they are close to a base camp because they have those kinds of
fresh cuts.
Yeah, those kinds of logistics to support their operation, right?
Uniforms.
Now, pardon?
Uniforms also, if they've got.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm sorry. I failed to say the uniforms, pith helmets, that sort of thing. That's very important. And so, if rarely could we see, shoes or their boots or anything like that. But anyway, so we had to also tell them which direction they were going. That was critical. Critical information. And if I can digress for just a second, Stan Edwards, as the E5 team leader, first half, November 1969, his team spotted 940 NVA. So he immediately calls this in direction. First of all, when you have a sighting, they'll ask you, because you don't want to talk, but our headquarters would say, for every 2 enemy, break squelch once. So you have the PRC 25, you break squelch once, twice, 3 times. That's six individuals. Well, this team, Sergeant Edwards' team, keeps breaking squelch. Okay, well, for every 5 enemy, break squelch once. Let 5 go by, break it again. They counted 940. Okay, this is in the mid-morning, 9, 10 a.m. Our lieutenant at Fuc Vin jumps in the Jeep, goes and interrupts the staff meeting that they were having with our colonel. Sir, one of my ranger teams just spotted 940 enemy going in such and such direction. One of the majors stands up, he says, you cannot trust these rangers. They're a bunch of cowboys. I've worked with them up north. You can't trust them. Can't believe what they're saying. The colonel says, they're headed to LZ Buttons. I want the perimeter reinforced. I want Spooky on call. Well, that morning, which would be that same night, right? 2 in the morning, these 940 NVA attack LZ Buttons. It was a turkey shoot from our infantry waiting for these guys. Just annihilated them, shot them in the wire, shot them everywhere. They did not have an opportunity to take their dead with them. It was that much firepower that was thrown on these guys. So you have to think how many lives were saved by this one instance, this one episode of Sergeant Stanley Edwards. In fact, Stan Edwards and I we're friends on Facebook to this day. We've linked up just recently after all these years. He says, "Hey, you remember me?" Yeah, I remember you. Anyway, he's been a deacon and all that. So, make a long story short, LRPs, long range reconnaissance patrols in Vietnam, and Rangers are one of the same, one and the same. SOG, a little bit different.
Wow. I would just say that the easiest way to clarify would be like the same with Project Delta and the Rangers and the LRPs. Albeit y'all didn't, if I'm not mistaken, didn't use NDIG quite as much or maybe at all, but everything y'all did was in country reconnaissance, and SOG just crossed the border. That's
In a lot of cases, yes, that's a good way to put it. They were, like I said, clandestine, kind of sneaky Pete's.
in every sense of the word.
Yes.
Since we've shown the photos of some of you guys in uniform, we love asking this question because there's such a wide array of Vietnam era camouflage that you guys were wearing or using. Daniel was curious which fatigue, the OD green, the tiger stripe, the ERDL camouflage, did you like the best, and which one of the three in your experience worked best in the jungles of Vietnam?
Well, I really did like the camouflage, the greens and all that. I like that better than the tiger fatigues. The tiger fatigues were nice, but the material was thinner on the tiger fatigues. So you go through the jungle, and if you hit some thorns and things, you might feel them more, or they might, cause a little tear or whatever in your uniform. Whereas the jungle fatigues were a little bit more hardy, a little bit thicker material, and I really preferred those.
I think I know I've got a photo here. There's one right here that I think the guys are wearing a array of ERDL tiger stripes, and I thought there was OD, but that's still ERDL.
Yes.
Maybe
Now
French para.
top left is looks like Chuck Donahue, and looking at his right arm, it looks like a tiger fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these other guys, like the top right, that's Erwin Thesson. He was my ATL, and he's got the camouflage, the regular camouflage fatigues. The guy in the middle his name is, we called him Shorty Comstock.
Oh, that's Shorty. Wow.
Yeah, Shorty took over my team.
Oh.
After 12 months and I left the team, Shorty took over. And so that's probably right about the time that Donahue
Who got
was
shot?
wounded. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the building in the back, above Shorty Comstock, you see a hole. Okay, that's from incoming. That particular building is a hangar that would house the helicopters there at Phuc Vinh.
Wow.
So their goal, the VC mainly, their goal was to, annihilate the helicopters, disable them any way they could. Unfortunately, our company area was right next to that hangar. So, so when they missed,
It got you.
we would, yeah, our training tent had a bunch of perforations in the top from the shrapnel, and one of our Jeeps took a direct hit from a mortar, and it
Jeez.
looked like that Wile E. Coyote cartoon. It was
Yeah.
hard.
Holy
I'm
cow.
thinking, my gosh, that
Whew.
was a unlucky or lucky, whatever shot.
Yeah, that's got to be scary on compound with them just
Yeah.
launching on y'all like that. And I noticed, and there's always question because you see some of you guys with some crazy gear setups later in the war, the AK chest rigs, and it looks like the gentleman here on the bottom far right are looking at the camera or the picture. he's got a M79 vest of some sort
Yes,
here.
yes. 40 millimeter grenades that fit nicely in those. It's especially made. It's a regular vest. It's not custom or anything. That's off the shelf vest that fits those. It looks like a fat shotgun shell with a cone on it. Is what those look like for the M79 grenade launcher.
And Mr. Chuck had, I think I've got a picture of Mr. Chuck with his, that ended up saving his bacon that day when
Yes.
his rifle was shot up. He don't know how he did it, much less stayed alive, but I don't understand how he fought him off like he did with that thing. And Mr. Shorty, thank God, was there, but whew,
Yes.
what
Yes.
a day.
Yeah, that was not a very good contact, and it was it just went the wrong way in just a
flash.
second or two. Yeah, yeah.
Were you guys fond of always chopping down the M79s, or did y'all sometimes keep them long, or was it preferred for the jungle work to cut them down?
And anything to reduce weight, anything to make things compact, we were all for it. Chuck got into a little bit of trouble with our company commander because he chopped off the buttstock on his M79. But hey, you go hunt this for 5 days and then tell me that it's not a good idea to chop it up, that kind of thing. Of course, you can't tell your company commander that, but we can think it.
That's great, and I love seeing these the my generation and even younger, because they're so used to hearing about the Navy SEALs and Delta and all that, and we see in the photos that they've got chopped M79s, and people are like, oh my God, look how creative they are to make. They call them pirate guns nowadays, but it's like the Vietnam guys were doing that in 67 and 68. This is nothing new under the sun. So, but I'm glad to see the younger generation finally getting to see a little bit of it and learn that you guys were way ahead of the curve on customization, and like you said, making it easier on yourselves. This is a wonderful question, and you being a team leader can perfectly help us with this. Daniel was curious, what was your procedure for entering an RO win or finding a suitable RO win for the night?
Okay, so first of all, what does RON stand for? I'm sorry.
Remain overnight.
Okay,
Your rest
okay,
location.
okay. Basically, we wanted to be concealed for the evening. That's the primary thing. Sometimes we didn't really think this far ahead of, okay, if it rains, how does this area, is this lower than the area around you? Which one of the first missions I was on, I slept in 3 inches of water, and I'm thinking this was not a very good place to spend the night. But mainly you want to be concealed. Should the NVA have any inkling that you are in their area, they will come looking for you at night with flashlights. And so it's imperative that you be concealed and just, burrowed into the jungle for the night. And we did sleep. If you can imagine a wagon wheel, you have 6 guys and all their feet are pointing out. It looks like a wagon wheel. All the rucksacks are in the middle, the radio's in the middle. Everyone takes 1 hour of radio watch throughout the night. They will ask for situation reports called sit reps. So the sit rep, if you do not answer by breakage squelch, they'll fire from the artillery base nearby, they'll fire like a marking round that will be, say, 200, they call it 200 hanging. And man, that thing at night, it'll wake up the dead, right? It's so loud. The canister, I would hear it whizzing through the jungle because somebody fell asleep, which I never, I'll tell you what, I'd come unglued if somebody went to sleep on my team during radio watch. It's not too much to ask to stay awake for an hour when your teammates' lives depend on it.
Yeah. We've heard some sad stories about guys catching Z's and the team and people on the team paying for it.
Yep.
Mm. That's I've got to imagine, it's bad enough you guys doing, and God, we've got some great questions. I know we've just hit the hour mark. We'll hit these questions while we've got them, and I think we'll have a good one for today. And again, see about a part 2 once people watch it. But I've got to imagine that's got to be, even after you get experience and you've been on the ground enough doing these missions, that overnight's got to be one of the hairier or scarier parts of the mission, I would think.
Yeah, the night halt is it's critical that you're able to get out of there, but at the same time you want to be bedded down for the night.
And you mentioned making sure with being able to be in somewhere. Are you making sure there's kind of maybe a little bit in the distance or somewhat there's some trees or something to where if anybody is attempting to overrun y'all have got somewhat of a little bit of a early warning with the brush and all of that, where y'all can instantly?
Well, we were pretty much, when you're in the jungle, it's a mishmash of kind of terrain. So you just kind of look. It's like when Easter comes and you want to go out camping with your family or whatever. You just kind of look around and see what's a suitable campsite. And there's not any. There was never a standard operating procedure of this or that. You have to have some way of getting out of there. That's critical. But at the same time, you know when you have to get on your hands and knees and get into something. Yeah, that's probably a pretty good place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what it sounds like when we speak to the Project Delta guys and everything. They kind of made it an emphasis to get into some of the harder reach areas for that sense of security. So here we go. I was wondering about, and I'm always mixed up on the NVA/VC structure. Would y'all have considered 940 men a battalion-sized element, or what was their structure? Did you kind of know? Because I know it's kind of different than the
This says guerrillas, so I'm thinking guerrillas are Viet Cong.
Yeah, he was meaning when you were talking about Mr. Edwards squelching, counting the VC.
Those were hardcore NVA.
Oh, NVA.
North Vietnamese regulars.
Yeah.
And so those guys have the very formal training, the way our troops do in the States and all that. They're considered hardcore.
Oh yeah.
The guerrillas that are Viet Cong, they're more like kind of disruptors, and they blend in. You never knew who's a Viet Cong and who's this or that, but it's hard to say battalion size because they were embedded into the whole society and within the towns and the villages. So they weren't like the 940 NVA. I don't know what you'd call them other than that's a hell of a lot.
Yeah. I would say
whether it's a battalion or
a regiment, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I just we just accepted it that
a hell of a lot of NVA.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not very good at all the.
No, I mean, heck, some of the guys we've spoken to have alluded one thing, and another guys, his SOG gentlemen, have alluded to. I think, guys, correct me in the comments, when Mr. Lynn Black went up against a battalion or a regiment, it was close to 1,000 men, and that's why I was trying to figure,
Okay.
But no problem whatsoever. Heck, I don't even know. That's why I continually ask.
But I have a question. Is right now a good time to cover this?
Yes, absolutely. I had forgot about that. Yes.
What I wanted to share with you and your viewers is the knife that I carried in Vietnam. I still have this today. It means a lot to me. I'm very, very, I guess, glad that this was given to me by an individual, a sergeant from Puerto Rico that was at the 1st Cav headquarters in Benoit. But anyway, this is a Gerber knife, very similar to, I think it's called the V-42 that the Red Devils carried in World War II. But it's it's sharp on both sides of the blade. It has a tip, very sharp tip. This is supposed to be, although I've never used it in combat as like what do you call it? Close in quarters combat, duking it out with someone. This is supposed to be a non-slip handle. I don't know if you can even see that it's very rough here, but non-slip should you get blood on it. So I only had one fleeting opportunity that we thought we were going to capture a POW, and I was the takedown man. I was assigned by my team leader, and I was the assistant team leader. It's got a little hole in here for if you want to put a lanyard of some sort. And this makes an excellent weapon for cracking somebody's skull. Okay. This has got a serial number here, right there. And it's 12135, Gerber put on there. Also, on the leather sheath, you can probably see a serial number on that leather sheath.
One of the viewers said, and he's a knife guy. He says that is MK2, like I thought earlier.
MK2,
that is
okay,
a
good.
very, very amazing knife. And I'm not mistaken, maybe Daniel can help me. I think Jerry Mad Dog Shriver actually carried a Gerber MK2 also.
Yes, I know about Mad Dog, but MK2. Hey, even at my age, I'm willing to learn, and I'm not adverse to that. But anyway, I thought your viewers would want to know a little bit about some of the things that we carried on in the field, and I always felt comfortable with this. Should we have to cut a rope or McGuire rig or whatever, this was my go-to knife, and that's it.
That's an amazing piece to still have, and an amazing knife to have, because I'm not a big knife guy. I'm more history oriented, but the guys like Daniel that know weapons and some of the other guys, they've been teaching me, and yeah, that's a heck of a knife to still have, especially your original one from back in the day.
Yeah, it's an older knife.
We have gotten a few questions dealing with some of your rounds, weapon and such as that. I would first ask, since you had mentioned right then you could kind of carry a mishmash of everything.
Yes.
You mentioned an AK-47 you used at one point in time. What
Yes.
was your go-to weapon? And were CAR-15s, M16s, and everything around for y'all to use?
Yes, we had a few CAR-15s. We had a few grease guns in the unit. We had a few pistols, and they were revolvers, of course. Mostly it was the M16, and I had no problem at all with jamming on mine.
That was one of our questions, asking
keeping
if you
it clean. So I got there in '69. I think in the early or mid '60s, they had problems with the gunpowder, and that was causing jams, and so that went on back and forth between the gun manufacturer and Congress and this and that. But anyway, my M16 was very reliable. However, for a number of months, I carried an AK-47 as an assistant team leader. As an assistant team leader or team leader, you get to do basically whatever you want, and no one, believe it or not, no one is going to question you. It's your life. You go out there with, if you want a BB gun, that's fine. More power to you. But okay, so here's the rationale for the AK-47. It was North Korean made folding stock. AK-47 is what I carried.
Wow.
We were not allowed to carry the Chi-Com AK-47s. So supposedly it was inferior materials.
Mhm.
But anyway, so the reasoning, the rationale for that was there were situations where the enemy they would actually signal to each other with single shots, either to reconnect, locate, or whatever each other. So if there was a need for one shot to be taken, then that was going to be assigned to me. I was the default guy, the only one carrying an AK-47, and I had my web gear on my chest. I carried those magazines, 30-round clips.
The
Okay.
AK chest rig you had made? Oh,
Yes,
wow.
yes,
That's
yeah.
great.
You put in one arm, put in the other arm. You know, they fasten onto your body pretty well, and also the AK-47 was very, very reliable. It may not have a faster cyclic rate of fire as the M16, but remember the M16 was 20-round magazines. Although there were some 30 in our unit, they were super scarce, very
Mm.
scarce. So let's just say 20-round magazines, and the AK-47 was 30 rounds. So that's kind of nice to have extra rounds. And also, you get in a firefight and you're in thick foliage, bamboo, things of that nature. The penetrating power of the AK-47 round is much better than the M16,
Oh, yeah.
and knockdown power and things like that. So there were some advantages to that. Um, I felt comfortable with it. I don't know. I just wanted to see what it was like. So I carried it maybe, I'm going to say about at least 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang, it sounds like you took to it and it was pretty good to you. So
Yeah.
did you just want to switch it up all of a sudden, or what brought on the
Well, once you start moving up in the team, the structure and things,
Hmm.
you're given more authority and autonomy to do what you want.
Hmm.
And so me on a personal level, I said, well, I keep hearing these single shots out there. I want to be able to, if there's one shot to be taken, then I want to be able to do that for the team. But it was kind of a curiosity thing for me, I think.
That's and it's cool the units like y'all out there doing the work y'all are doing, getting the leeway to experiment and use what's best for y'all and not having to fall in line and worry about
Right.
what the higher ups are going to say, so to speak.
There was one team leader in our company that carried right here a revolver, and it was a 357 Magnum.
That's a heavy piece to be hauling out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Not for me.
No, no.
Not for me.
Did well, I'll ask this before. Did you ever carry a sidearm of any sort?
No,
No.
no. My feeling was you never want to bring a knife to a gunfight. And so a sidearm going against an automatic weapon, I I don't want to even think about that.
Rather carry more ammo than be sticking with the pistol or its ammo, I
Oh
can
yeah,
imagine.
absolutely, absolutely.
This is a good one. Lonnie was curious how much when you went back to the M16, how much 5.56 ammo were you carrying on a mission?
Probably about, I would estimate about 300 rounds.
Whew.
So, you know, now 300 rounds, probably when you see the magazines, that's going to probably be like 15 magazines or so. That doesn't seem like a lot, but again, you're going to be out there for 5 days and you're carrying, two grenades, two smoke grenades, uh, two claymore mines, uh, parachute flare, and the list goes on and on. you know, several quarts of water, your LERP rations. I mean, after a while, you say, I wish I could take more ammo. And what's to say, if somebody wants to carry 400 rounds, that's fine too. That's 300 rounds. That's basically 15 magazines. Okay, and so anyway, it varies. Our the firefights that we got into, I mean, for the most part, they were brief, and then we would get extracted. So we did not have to hold ground or, hold this hill or this and that. It was, you're there for a different purpose and a different reason. So don't don't necessarily go to toe to toe with somebody. If you have to and you're monitoring a trail and somebody accidentally, like a NVA or whatever, looks over and then spots you, well, then you have to blow them away with your claymores. But you immediately leave the area and call for gunships, and you call for an extraction.
Yeah, y'all are snooping and pooping not to get out there into a pitched gun battle with a regiment or whatever is going to come y'all's way.
Right.
300 rounds, that is, I mean, that's not far off from some of the SOG guys carrying, 400 and 500 rounds. We've heard even more, but 300
Yeah.
rounds, 15 mags of 5.56, that on top of what else you're carrying, that is a lot of weight to be humping. We've got three more questions because we've just hit an hour 15. I was going to try and get it before an hour 30. Daniel has three good ones here, actually. What anti-tracking techniques did you use during patrols to throw off trackers that may be on your trail?
Okay, that is a wonderful question, and I'm glad that was asked.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first of all, we never walked on a trail. Okay, their footprints and our footprints, whether they're wearing the VC are wearing Ho Chi Minh sandals or the NVA are wearing like boots, regular, canvas boots with the rubber soles.
Bata boot.
Yeah, they make a completely different footprint than an American jungle boot. And there were two. The one was a waffle kind of footprint that
Weird.
American boot made, and I don't know what the other one was, but they were distinct and different. Anyway, so one thing, never walk on a trail. You can jump over a trail if you need to, but don't walk on a trail. Second thing, so anti-tracking, if we're moving down parallel to a trail, and I mean when I say parallel, we're like maybe 1 or 2 feet off of that trail, and you're walking parallel to it. You have the option of if you want to monitor that trail, you want to do a button hook. And so what you do is you go down and then you button hook, like say if you're moving on the left side of a trail and you're going forward, you want to button hook and you want to come over and just basically you're doing a U-turn and then you're coming back to monitor to see if anyone is following you. And you keep your eyes and ears open. You might go down when you make your U-turn, you might want to come back, say 25 meters or so, just to see and listen. And we had one team that was being followed, and it happened to sundown, and they wouldn't believe my friend when he said somebody's following us because he was brand new. The team leader, no, you're imagining. Yeah, sure enough, somebody's following them. But anyway, that's an excellent question.
Daniel's always got some great questions for us. And he
Good
actually
job.
said maybe the Vibram and the Panama jungle boot.
That's
Meaning
probably as good as any. Daniel apparently is well read on these subjects. But yeah,
very well read.
two very, very distinct footprints.
And
Yes.
it's amazing how people always talk about the NVA, and they clearly haven't read up or knew the history of the NVA, but they kind of act like they're just stumbling and bumbling and not knowing what they're doing. And I mean,
Well,
they can spot anything that's out of the ordinary from something they just walked by and immediately be on y'all's trail. I mean,
well,
you gotta be.
we did have teams that were extracted at night because somehow the NVA either threw a spotter on an LZ where they came in, saw them, or they left a boot print or something. But I got to tell you, you don't want to be extracted at night. It's extremely dangerous.
I mean, it's dangerous enough during the daylight getting pulled
Yeah,
out of the jungle. I can,
exactly, bud. Exactly.
God Almighty. Um, oh, these are two good ones to close out with. Um, did you ever encounter any old temples, ruins, or any old infrastructure left in the jungle? Maybe not even NVA associated, just any natural beauty in the jungle.
Very, very rarely. Very rarely. I maybe something that could resemble like something was there at one time, but for the most part in these free fire zones, no. It was kind of interesting going through a rubber plantation because you feel naked. All these trees are
Wow.
lined up, and uh, there's no real vegetation or place to hide. So that was a kind of eerie going through a rubber plantation.
I've got some photos of some guys down at CCS, and they were in the Quan Loy area patrolling at some points in time. And I've got a few, and it is, like you said, it is just absolutely eerie. I couldn't imagine walking through
Okay.
it, and then if the NBA knowing you're in there launching mortars and those trees, just
Yeah.
terrifying,
Yeah.
absolutely terrifying. And uh, let's see, Daniel was curious about, and I can't believe I haven't asked this already. Did you come in any contact? I know the question already, but I'm trying to find it. Did you have any interesting encounters with tigers, snakes, or any other animals, dangerous or funny?
The only time that we did hear something very, very suspicious was late one night when we were at a night halt, and we felt like something was moving through the jungle, but it was huge. And we thought maybe it was an elephant because the whole jungle seemed to move. And we never determined whether it was an elephant or, anything else. It just kind of like came towards us and then left. But something of that size, when you have bamboo that's, I don't know, growing and it's super tall, 50, 60 feet, and trees like that, and they're all moving in unison at the same time, you have to think this is something
So,
big. But there were tigers. One of our teams had a tiger that went very, very close to him, didn't make any noise, just silently went by them. There is an instance where an infantryman was like on the perimeter of at night. They had set up for a perimeter at night that they were out on a patrol, an infantry company, and this one soldier was attacked at night. They found blood, uh, huge blood, uh, scattered right there where he was. They brought uh, another number of soldiers the following day online and hunted this tiger down and killed him.
dang.
Yeah, that would be ugly to be mauled by a tiger.
When we've heard some force recon stories, and some men, Mr. Gary Linder shared a story about some guys getting literally snatched out of the wagon wheel at night and drug off into the jungle. And
It happens.
I
Can
God,
happen.
terrifying. As I said, as if the weather and the NVA aren't bad enough, the animals coming after
Yeah.
y'all.
And the vipers,
Yeah.
the two steps,
Oh yes.
little green vipers that, they bite you and two steps later you're dead.
The fertilances,
Yeah.
the habus,
Yeah. Fertilance.
those. Yeah, I'm not a big spider or snake guy, much less giant bumblebees and all that you'd see over there. I couldn't have. I know I couldn't have made it in the bush. I would have had a nervous breakdown, and y'all would have
I hear
had
you.
to duct tape me to a tree or something. um, let's see, guys, if y'all have got any more last minutes, get them in, because if not, we're gonna shut down part one, and we'll see after the viewers watch, and if they've got some questions, we'll see about having Mr. Charlie back for a part two. But it looks like to close, I was gonna see if you would talk to us a little bit about this picture, and I'm gonna show off the rest of them. But what you learned from your first team leader, Mr. Was it Dan Roberts?
Yes, Dan Roberts.
Yes, and there's
Dan
that
Roberts.
photo of you guys.
I learned a heck of a lot from Dan. Basically, I learned a leadership style from Dan. Dan was no nonsense. We're going to do it by the book. I'm not here to babysit you. You got to pull your load, and you've got to do things my way. He kind of from the very beginning, he didn't set me down to give me all the rules and everything. But as I went along, I was smart enough to figure out, man, this guy doesn't mess around, So he had me carry the radio. In this particular mission, I'm not carrying the radio any longer. But so I was his RTO, which was in some cases was a blessing because you learn exactly what's going on with the team. It's the fastest way to learn the team tactics and how things are done day to day by carrying the radio. Although it's 25 pounds, so there's a downside to that. Chuck Donahue was the RTO on my team, and he did a fantastic job. Always dependable and that sort of thing. But Dan pretty well set the bar pretty high on a leadership style. Yeah, there's Chuck right there with carrying the radio. There's the antenna.
Gosh, I can't imagine hauling that dadgum thing on your back all through,
Yeah.
all day.
Well, I have back problems to this day, so it does take its toll.
I can absolutely imagine. And one of the viewers just mentioned, I can't believe I didn't bring this up during the animal thing, but Mr. Gary Linder had a great story from a patrol. Thank God nothing went wrong, but where he came across that giant rock ape that may or may not have gone down in history of maybe the Rangers actually seeing the Vietnamese Bigfoot. I don't know if you've heard that story, but I've got a little clip from our interview that I made that the rock apes, yeah, those things are terrifying. Okay. Throwing rocks at guys. That we heard from a SOG team that were on a mountaintop that they had evidently come into the rock apes little not hunting area but resting area, and they were throwing rocks at them all night, and finally bum rushed the team, and the team was like, we're done, we're getting out of here, we're leaving. Yeah, oh gosh, we forgot. Do you want to save, or would you like to speak a little bit to close out on Apache Blues, the project?
Okay, Apache Blues is a documentary that I highly recommend that you view. It's on Amazon Prime Video. You can rent it for $4.99. And Dave Merlino and Dustin Sweet actually traveled around the country and hooked up with the guys that were in they were RQRF. They were called the Blues, and their nickname is Apache Blues, but they were part of the 1st Cav Division. And should we get in over our head or needed immediate support, then we would call in the Apache Blues, which was a rifle platoon. And when they were when they when they were summoned, for example, they had this loud horn that went off in their area. The helicopters, the blades would already be spinning. They had 2 minutes to get on that helicopter and leave. And they really didn't know much about where they were headed or what their role was going to be. But their job was to go after downed helicopters. It was, they did some recon, and they were the QRF for our teams. So we always felt confident that should we get in trouble in the field, that we could call on the Apache Blues. But it's well worth the watch. I'm interviewed in that documentary, as well as my wife. Craig Jorgensen, Ed Beal are on there. And what else can I tell you about that? The reason for the documentary is to give people an understanding of what it was like to come back from Vietnam to a divided country. Some favored the war, some did not favor the war. Those that did not favor the war were very vocal through protests and things of that nature, but they actually would spit on our guys at the airport, our guys that were in uniform coming back, and it was not welcome home at that point.
No, my dad actually had dog shit thrown on him in a paper bag, and luckily the Chicago, the California Highway Patrol were there, and they particularly like beating up Hare Krishna guys and the hippies doing that, and they immediately tore a mud hole in those guys' rear end, so Dad and his buddies wouldn't have to be arrested their first day landing back in the States. And as a matter of fact, it was so bad when Dad got back that he said there was a line on either side, California Highway Patrol wanting Marines with combat experience, and then on the other side it was the Hells Angels looking for men to join. And Dad immediately went right down the middle and said no and no thank you.
Yeah.
I've just been through hell. I don't need any more.
That's right.
I think we've covered my list that we had here, and we got some great questions and spoke about Apache Blues, which I was hoping we would cover. And I
Yes.
sadly didn't get to watch it before the interview, but today or tomorrow I'll be watching and renting it and getting a good look-see, because Mr. Craig and several others, author himself, and he's been interviewed by the Team House, and just a great guy all around, as Mr. Charlie said earlier. But we will be seeing about a part two. Mr. Charlie is going to be out and about for the next couple of weeks. So maybe when he gets back, we'll see if he can join us again for part two. Mr. Charlie, is there anything you'd like to say before we shut her down for the day?
But I want to thank you for contacting me and giving me an opportunity to get a few things off my chest. And it's always good for my soul to be able to go back and reflect and have people that actually take an interest. Your viewers have been very, very gracious. Their questions have been wonderful. Daniel, my hat's off to you. You know more about this Vietnam War than I do, but I just want to tell you that I do want to thank you for everything.
That means the world. As I tell the guys, I'm always happy when they enjoy the shows and get to learn stuff. But it's really when I make you guys proud and y'all's families.
Yes.
That's what we're doing this for, is to preserve y'all's legacy, and hopefully some of these young kids, younger generations, will be able to see this and really get back into it, because we're losing you guys a lot now. Y'all have turned into kind of what the WW2 generation was not too long ago, and I just hope everybody gets renewed interest in our Vietnam vets, because y'all sacrificed a lot, and we're just a stellar group, the greatest generation. I know that gets heaped on every generation that fights a war, but I fully believe Vietnam we're another part of that greatest generation. So I want to thank you for spending an hour and a half with us today, which we weren't planning on, but thank you for all you've done and continue to do. And you be safe on the road, and hopefully we can get you back for part two here in the coming weeks or month.
Thank you, bud. Rangers lead the way.
Yes, sir. And you have a great day.